Bonjour. This week, we'll be talking about the verbs faire and jouer to talk about different activities and things to do in French. Let's start out with a conjugation of the verb faire. First of all, to talk about how to do or to make things, we use the verb faire in French. Now, this is a verb that has a lot of different idiomatic expressions with it, so it's one that you'll see used over and over in French. To conjugate the verb in the present tense, we say je fais, tu fais, il fait, elle fait, on fait, nous faisons, vous faites, ils font, elles font. Let's look at some examples of ways that we can use the verb. You could say, for example, je fais les courses le vendredi, which means I go shopping on Friday. There's obviously no go in here, it translated directly from English, but this is an idiomatic expression. Faire les courses means to go or do the shopping. Madame Lu fait un voyage à Tokyo. Mrs. Lu is taking a trip to Tokyo. I almost said making. So she's taking a trip. In English we say to take a trip. In French you make a trip. Elle fait un voyage. Nous faisons du ski à Noël. We go skiing at Christmas. So in French, we faire du ski. You don't go skiing, you make skiing. Mon frère aime faire de la natation. My brother likes to swim. The expression faire de la natation means to go swimming. Let's look at some other ways to use the verb. Often you'll hear a question with the verb faire in it. For example, qu'est-ce que tu fais cet après-midi? What are you doing this afternoon? Well, when you answer that question, you may not use the verb faire in your answer. Just like in English, you might say something like, j'étudie. Plus tard, je fais du vélo. Ensuite, je vais faire la sieste. In other words, I'm studying on. Later on, I'm going for a bike ride. Then, I'm going to take a nap. In the answer to this question, qu'est-ce que tu fais cet après-midi? We don't use the verb faire at all. You may use it, but then again, you may not. It depends on what you want to say. Another way to talk about activities in French is to use the verb jouer. And we're going to learn two ways to use the word jouer, depending on whether you're talking about a sport or a game versus playing an instrument. We're going to start out with a sport and a game. When you're using the verb jouer to talk about playing sports or games, we're going to use the expression jouer and then a definite article, and then the sport or the game. For example, je joue au tennis. Remember, au is a contraction of a and le, because tennis is masculine. Vous jouez aux cartes. You play cards. And au, aux, is a contraction of the preposition a and the definite article les, les. Okay? We can also use the verb faire. Zinedine Zidane fait du football. Or, il joue au football. These are two different ways of saying the same thing, that he plays soccer. But notice the difference in the prepositions. Il fait du football, or, like we just talked about, il joue au football. If you want to talk about an instrument that you play, and you want to use the verb faire or jouer, this is how you do it. With jouer, you're going to use the preposition de, again, a definite article, and then your instrument. For example, the second sentence here, il joue de la guitare. Similarly, we can use the verb faire. Il fait de la guitare. Both of these expressions mean he plays the guitar. In this case, however, different from what we had with sports, we use the preposition de both with faire and with jouer. The takeaway out of this should be this. You can use the expression faire to talk about a number of different activities. Doing shopping, going skiing, riding your bike. You can also use the expression faire to talk about playing musical instruments or playing sports. However, there's a second choice when you're playing a sport or a musical instrument, and that's the verb jouer, which is a regular ER verb. The trick here is knowing that with jouer, when you're playing an instrument, you use jouer de, whereas if you're playing a sport or a game, it's jouer à. We'll practice this more in class, but hopefully that gets you started. Merci.